partitioning shapes into unit fractions. Your learning target today is I can partition shapes into unit fractions, and you'll know you're successful when you can equally break down shapes into a given number of pieces total and give the unit fraction with the denominator representing the total. All right, today we are going to be partitioning shapes, and something I really want everybody to take note of is when you see that it says halves or eighths or sixths, thirds, fifths, and tenths. That is a huge clue on what fraction you're going to be finding. The unit fraction will always help you. Okay, so when it says halves, my denominator is going to be a 2, since halves deal with 2 on the bottom of the fraction. Same with eighths, that's going to be my denominator. And then sixths, that's going to be my denominator. So when it says, oh, I want you to partition your shape into eighths, then that's my clue that my unit fraction will have an 8 as the denominator on the bottom of the fraction. Let's go down to thirds right there with the square that looks like it is sideways. What will the denominator be in that unit fraction once I partition that shape? A 3, because thirds are dealing with 3 on the bottom of the fraction. And then we have fifths, and that means a 5 will be on the bottom of our fraction. And then tenths, which means a 10 will be on the bottom. So let's see how we partition a shape. Let's see. Let me cut my triangle in half. Uh-oh. I see a problem. When I cut something in half, I need to make sure I have exactly an equal amount on side 1 and then side 2. Do those look equal? Like if that was a slice of pizza, would that be fair if I gave you this slice right here and I get all of this? That would not be fair because that's not equal. So that is not how we would cut that shape in half. We need to make sure it's exactly the same on both sides. So I'm going to do my best to have this be in the middle. Okay? And if that was exact, then both of our pieces would be the same. I would get 1/2 and you would get 1/2, and then that would be fair. So our unit fraction is 1/2 because our denominator tells us that total. There are 2 slices total, right? But there's only 1/2 for each person. Okay, let's look at eighths. So something that I like to do with these big numbers that are even, okay, that is the key word, even numbers. I can, in order to cut this in half equally and not be like, and not have this problem that I'm going to have right now of going, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, now I ran out of room. What would I do? This is what we would do, okay? If it's an even number, like the number 8 is right here, I can cut my shape in half to start, and then I could cut each piece in half again. Now let me try that one again because that wasn't exactly equal. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so far I have 4. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut now my pieces in half one more time. And then I will have equal pieces. Now I know Miss Christensen's not the most perfect drawer, so bear with me. But if you do it that way, it's going to be as exact as possible. And again, if you are not a perfect drawer, of course, it's going to look a little off. But you get the idea. So I have 8 equal pieces. And what would be my unit fraction of course, this piece? It would be 1/8, right? I want you to pause the video and I want you to try the next one, the sixths, by yourself. Or if you're in class, so your teacher could pause the video, and I want you to try this one with your class. What would you do to cut this shape equally into 6 pieces. All right, let's try cutting this into 6ths. So here's my tip for if it's like a 3 or a 6 or a 9, right? Because 3, 6, 9, we know those are multiples of 3. Then I would say let's try cutting this in thirds. First, okay? And now we're going to use my little tip of cut in half, since 6 is an even number, okay? So let's cut these little pieces in half, and that piece in half, and that piece in half. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. And what would one of those pieces be as a unit fraction? 1/6. Good job. So my little tip of cutting in half, if the number is even, is it works right away when it's 2, 4, or 8, right? Because with the 8s, we had cut the first piece in half, and then eventually it just all worked out. I cut it in half again, and cut it in half again, and cut it in half again, and it kept working. But when it was 6ths, I had to start small first, start with 3, and then I cut the pieces in half. So let's see how we would cut this square for number 7 in thirds. So thirds, that's going to be tricky because I'm noticing that this is a square and you're going to have to be creative. So obviously I can't cut it in half and do this, because would that be equal? If I had this big slice right here and I gave this one to you and then this one to someone else, that wouldn't be fair. So that wouldn't work. I'm going to have to be creative with this one. So I know it's kind of tricky because the square is like sideways and not like the normal way, but kind of turn your eyes around or your head around and look at it as if it were like this, like a normal square, okay? Because then I can just cut this into 3 pieces. And that's how I would do that in thirds for a square. All right, last, hold on before I move on to the next one. Can you remind me, if it says thirds, what would be my denominator? A 3, because there's how many total pieces in my square? 1, 2, 3, right? That's why my denominator has to be 3. And so, what would be my unit fraction? My unit fraction represents this one piece, 1/3. Okay, let's look at the fifths. So with fifths, this is an odd number just like the thirds. So I'm just going to I might have to like try this a couple of times, erase my lines and try again. That's okay. We are all practicing and experimenting on how this will look when I cut these into equal pieces. So if this was like a breadstick, it kind of looks like one to me. I'm going to try to cut this into 5 equal pieces because 5 will be my denominator since I need to cut it in fifths. Okay, let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my goodness, that's pretty good, isn't it? I think I'm going to stick with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pieces total. And what would be my unit fraction for one piece? 1. I want you to pause the video and try this last one by yourself. I want you to find tenths. And so kind of remember that tip of if it's an even number, I should cut things in half. Think about fifths, what I did there. And then think about that tip of cutting in half. And then what would also be my unit fraction for this one? So think about that. Pause the video and try this on your own. All right, so by now, I hope that you tried this one. And the first step really is what we're going to do, and is what I hope you did, is I'm going to do what I did right here when I did fifths. Okay, I realize my rectangle's a little bit bigger but that's okay. So let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I have 4 lines, it makes 5 pieces, right? So we have 5 so far. And now you have a couple of different choices. You could have done this, and I think this is easier. But look what I'm going to do. Whoop, right down the middle. Kind of looks like an ice cube tray if I did it that way, right? So that would work. Or this would work. Cutting my other pieces in half too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then let's see how many pieces I have all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that works too. I will say probably the other way was easier, right? When just going down the middle with a horizontal line, making it look like an ice cube tray. Either way is fine, whatever you prefer, but making sure that each piece is equal. So what was the unit fraction that you came up with for one of your pieces? Our denominator is the total number of pieces, which is 10. And so your unit fraction should have been 1/10. Nice work today. Thank you. So remember, your learning target today is I can partition shapes into unit fractions, and you'll know you're successful when you can equally break down shapes into a given number of pieces total and give the unit fraction with the denominator representing the total.